Nobody knew how long she'd been lying there. The wind whipped dust along the worn trail, curling around the rancher's boots like it had a mind of its own. He'd been riding all day, chasing the horizon, when a faint, desperate whisper cut through the dusk. "Please, don't hurt me." He froze. The voice was soft, fragile, human, and it trembled like the last leaf on a dying tree. He followed the sound, slow and cautious, boots crunching over dry earth. The cabin came into view, small, sagging, as if it were holding its breath at the edge of his property. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, more memory than warmth. The wooden boards groaned under the weight of the wind. Something about the place made his gut tighten. Not all danger wore a human face. Inside, the fire had shrunk to a weak, flickering ember. Shadows danced on the walls, jagged as broken teeth. There she was, a young woman huddled beneath a tattered blanket, eyes wide, reflecting the faint glow. Her hands clutched it like it was a shield against the world. Her skin was bruised, her lips cracked. Every inch of her screamed fear. He knelt slowly, careful not to startle her. "It's all right," he said, voice low. "I won't hurt you." Her gaze darted to the door, then back at him, as if weighing the truth in his words. There was something deeper there, a shadow behind the eyes, a story she hadn't told, or maybe couldn't. He pulled the blanket back gently, one hand at the edge, heart thudding like a hammer in a tin chest. Dust hung in the air. The room smelled of smoke, sweat, and a lingering hint of iron. What he saw made him catch his breath. Not just bruises, not just fear, something else. Something he hadn't expected. A mark, or a wound, or maybe a secret, hidden in plain sight, and it hit harder than a bullet. And then he realized the danger wasn't gone. It wasn't just in the shadows outside the cabin. It was here, inside, lurking beneath the blanket, lying silent but alive, waiting for the next move. He swallowed. He had to make a choice. And in that moment, the wind howled like a warning, and the fire guttered as if to whisper, "You've walked straight into it." The mark beneath the blanket wasn't just a bruise, not just blood. It was something else. Jagged, raw, almost deliberate. Whoever, or whatever, had done this, had left a message, or a warning. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight settle in his chest. His hands hovered over the blanket, unsure whether to pull back further or step away. Fear had teeth, and tonight, it bit deep. The fire crackled weakly, throwing shadows that twitched across the cabin walls. A wolf howled somewhere beyond the trees. A single floorboard creaked behind him. Each sound was amplified, each movement a question he didn't want to answer. She spoke, voice breaking. They won't stop." Just a whisper, just enough to make him lean closer. The memory of her flight came unbidden, through the forest, through brush that clawed at her skin, through mud and blood and broken branches. She had been running, always running, and behind her, dark figures, shadows that moved with purpose, faces obscured, motives unknown. He didn't need to see them clearly to know they were relentless. "Why didn't you tell someone?" he asked, throat tight. She shook her head. "No one would believe me. Not even you." The rancher's mind raced. Call for help? Take her to town? Or stay, face whatever had followed her here? Every choice had danger attached. Every choice was a gamble. He weighed them silently, the cabin's walls pressing closer. She nodded, though her hands trembled. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every gust of wind could carry a predator's breath. She'd learned to expect danger. He'd learned to face it. Together they made a slow, careful march toward a safer place. The woman spoke, voice low, hesitant. They want to control everything. Not just me. My choices, my life." Her eyes flicked to the distance, haunted. "They won't stop. Not until I vanish entirely." The rancher kept his gaze ahead, scanning tree lines, broken terrain, every hiding place the wilderness offered. He didn't speak much. Actions mattered more than words in nights like this. They dodged shadows, moved under low-hanging branches, slipped over jagged rocks. He led her through paths only he could navigate, instinct honed from years of knowing the land. Wolves howled in the distance. Twigs snapped under unseen feet. Danger pressed in from all sides, yet they pushed forward, grit and determination as their armor. She paused near a fallen log, catching her breath. The moonlight caught the scar on her cheek, carved deep by someone who hadn't cared about mercy. She shivered. I've seen what happens when you trust the wrong person. You lose more than freedom. You lose yourself. He rested a hand lightly on her shoulder, protective, grounding. We'll make it, one step at a time. We survive tonight, we survive tomorrow. Eventually, they reached the barn, hidden, abandoned, walls thick with age and shadow, a temporary haven. Inside, silence stretched between them. Dust motes danced in the silver light from a crack in the roof. For a moment, they let themselves breathe. She sank against the wall, trembling. I don't think I can ever go back. Not to who I was. Her words lingered, heavy, yet tender. He offered no reply, just presence. It was enough. But the night wasn't done with them. A sudden crash outside shattered the fur. Agile calm. Wood splintered. Footsteps pounded against the ground. The sound tore through the barn like a warning. Her eyes widened in terror. They found us. He gritted his teeth, instincts flaring. Every muscle coiled for action. The temporary respite was over. The hunted had become the hunted again. And this time, the confrontation couldn't be avoided. The moon cast long shadows over the barn walls. Outside, the darkness waited, patient and merciless. And in that moment, both knew the fight was coming, and it would change everything. The crash outside the barn had set the night ablaze with tension. The rancher moved like a shadow himself, pressing the woman behind him as the intruders advanced. Moonlight caught their outlines, faces twisted, weapons gleaming. They want her, the rancher whispered, low and sharp, but not for what you think. The woman's hands shook, but there was a fire in her eyes now. No longer just fear, resolve, survival. He led her through narrow gaps between barn walls, using the creaking structure as cover. Each step was a gamble. The night smelled of sweat, gunpowder, and wet earth. He could feel the danger closing in. A sudden shout, a gunfire flash. He ducked, rolling behind a pile of old hay bales. She followed, heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat of war. Now you see them, he said, voice rough. And now you fight smart. She nodded, gripping a fallen plank. Her first swing was awkward but determined. She struck, forcing one of the intruders back. The rancher moved beside her, side by side, a team forged in fire and terror. They circled, dodged, and struck. The intruders had greed in their eyes, money, power, revenge, but neither could anticipate the pair who knew every shadow, every dip of the land. The rancher's strategy, her courage, they were unpredictable, like the wilderness itself. A sudden leap, a broken weapon, a scream in the dark, then silence. Only the wind stirred. When it was over, they stood amidst the wreckage, breathing hard. The immediate threat had vanished. Bodies slumped, retreating footprints faded into the night. But the echoes lingered, the memory of teeth-bared menace still heavy in the air. Dawn broke slowly, painting the plains with gold and amber. The rancher and the woman stood together, battered but alive, shadows stretching long behind them. She leaned against him, exhaustion and relief mingling. You're safe, for now, he said, voice soft. Not just reassurance, a promise of fragile peace. She looked out across the open land, past the barn, past the danger. I thought I'd never see daylight like this again, she whispered. He nodded, eyes on the horizon. Darkness comes again, but today we survived it, together. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying hints of what might still come. Her past, the enemies not yet revealed, the shadows that lingered, none of it gone. But, for now, hope held them like a warm fire against the cold. And as they watched the sun rise, battered but alive, there was a quiet truth. Survival is fleeting, but courage, compassion, and trust, that lasts far longer. The plains stretched endless ahead, a world still uncertain, but for the first time, they faced it side by side. Outside, the wind shifted. The trees groaned. Something, or someone, was moving near the edge of his property. His hand went to his gun, fingers brushing the worn grip. The world had narrowed to shadow and threat. She shivered, and he could see it now, the fragments of her story, scattered like shards of glass. She had loved, she had lost, she had fought, and she had survived this far by sheer will alone. But the questions remained. Who had done this to her? Why? And why now? Then, as if drawn by the night itself, a shape emerged at the clearing's edge, still, silent, watching. The firelight glinted off something dark, something sharp. He stepped forward, heart pounding. The rancher knew instinctively this wasn't just a scare. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't the wind. And then the shadow shifted, just slightly, enough to make him realize they were closer than he thought. He gritted his teeth, knowing that whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The shadow moved with purpose, and the rancher stepped forward, boots grinding against the dry dirt. The figure emerged from the tree line, a man, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes like chipped stone. "I'm looking for her," the stranger said, voice low, flat. Every word carried weight. Threat, warning, and something colder still. The woman trembled behind him, barely daring to breathe. She whispered, just enough for the rancher to catch it, "He's not alone." Her eyes darted toward the dark edges of the woods, warning him. Another presence lingered, silent, waiting, patient. The rancher's hand hovered near his gun, but instinct held him back. Words wouldn't work here, only action. The stranger stepped closer. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Twigs snapped underfoot. Somewhere in the distance, thunder muttered a threat. Then came the struggle, quick, brutal. The rancher lunged, his weight driving the stranger back, fists meeting resistance. Dirt flew, boots skidding, muscles straining. For a moment, time slowed, heartbeats hammering, sweat mixing with the dust. The woman scrambled, staying just out of reach, leaving behind subtle signs. A fallen scarf, a scrap of paper tucked beneath a rock. A clue only the rancher would notice. She wasn't gone yet, but she was slipping, weaving through shadows, guiding him without words. The stranger cursed, lunging again, but the rancher was ready. He ducked, sidestepped, and used the forest itself to his advantage. A tree trunk for cover, a low branch to trip the aggressor. Each move was precise, born from years of living with risk. And then, she vanished, gone. The woman's presence lingering only in the faint marks she left behind. But her warnings had been clear. Trust the wrong person, and the night would claim her. The rancher's eyes scanned the ground, and he saw it. A pattern, not random. A sign carved into bark, another etched into dirt. Names, dates, past victims, left as grim messages by someone who thrived on fear. The stranger was just a piece of a larger, cruel puzzle. The forest held its breath. The stranger retreated, melting into the darkness, leaving only one final, chilling message scrawled in the dirt. "She'll run again, if you let her." The words struck harder than any blow. The rancher clenched his jaw. The woman's life, her secrets, and the shadowed past now rested on him. And the night was far from over. Moonlight spilled across the rugged terrain, silver dust on rocks and dry grass. The rancher and the woman moved cautiously, each step measured, silent, bruised, wounded, but not broken. "Stay close," he whispered. His voice was rough but steady, protective.